podcast, your guide through mass media communication. Welcome again to week 1. Since this week, we're looking at how the book publishing company grew and how that mass media has changed over the years with ebooks and self-publishing. I have the great pleasure to interview today a self-published author of over 15 books. She's also a great friend of mine, Michelle Sodaro. Thank you for joining us today, Michelle. Well, first, in this week, we're learning about the mass media of publishing books. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your books? What genre or label do you think you'd put your books into?
So most of mine are romance. I would say that probably definitely more than half of them have been romance so far. I have attempted one mystery. I have a nonfiction. I have a poetry book. I have 2 kids' books, and then one that just falls in like general fiction. So there's not really a genre that I would pigeonhole myself into. I'm kind of trying to go the full range there with all of the genres.
I'm not going to lie, I asked that question on purpose because I think it's really cool that you have all the genres. I mean, it keeps it interesting. It keeps your readers like, oh, hey, what's next, you know?
Yeah. Well, and like when I put out my first mystery, my thought was I'm going to get new readers and hopefully they like my writing style enough that they, read my romances. My reader, she doesn't as a rule read romances, but she'll read mine. So that to me is like a huge compliment.
Definitely. So what is it like trying to publish your books? Like, what do you go through to do that kind of thing?
So the biggest struggle for me was letting go of my idea that something had to be perfect. I mean, you have to get it as close as you can. You have to get the errors. Because it's all on you. Like I don't have a staff to check my errors and make sure that everything is edited and, make sure that I'm clear. So to me, the hardest part is probably just making sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. I published a book and I forgot to put in the page numbers. So now, like I've made a list through the process of publishing, I've kind of learned, okay, this makes it easier, follow these steps, but just double checking everything. And when you self-publish, and even when you go traditional publishing, you have to do so much of it. Like you have to do the networking and you have to do the advertising and you have to do the plugs. And so getting new readers is always a challenge because there's so many books out there. And so to get somebody to choose your book over somebody else's, you have to make sure that the grammar is checked. You have to make sure that the cover is sharp. There's just a lot of boxes that you have to mark.
So what are some ways that you promote your books? Do you use a lot of internet or do you think that's changed?
It really has. It used to be that, you would get an editor and you would get an agent and they would then take care of all of the publication and all of the promoting and, everything like that. But with the world being so social media bound, you have to have an Instagram, you have to have a Facebook, you have to have a Twitter, and you have to keep those updated because you keep in contact with your readers. And I've gotten new readers from my blog, I've gotten new readers from my Twitter, I've gotten new readers, from friends of friends, and word of mouth is amazing. So my friends have been instrumental in getting me new readers, which is fantastic. And I have book signings and I promote those on my website and I promote those on Instagram. And it's just using all of the social media platforms to the best of your ability. Each social media thing has its own limitations. So I think if you use all of them, that way you can reach the most people.
Do you do the same thing on all your social media?
No. Yes, I use Twitter differently than I use Facebook. And Instagram and Facebook kind of seem like, they're related, they're cousins, and so a lot of things that I put on Facebook, I'll put the same thing on Instagram because it's easier and I can just do it on Instagram and then it posts to my Facebook. But like my Twitter, I'll do more things that are short. Like I won't go on and on Twitter. I'll just, hey, writing, it's a good day for writing, or having coffee with, my girlfriend getting ideas or, whatever. So it's just using each of those platforms the way that they're supposed to be used.
That's smart. How would you say the publishing industry has changed, like from years ago to what it would be right now?
It's huge. It's huge. So I went to a writers conference a couple years ago, and the the author was talking all about the publishing industry, but he was traditionally published, and good for him. That's fantastic. But that's all he talked about. And so many authors now, there's so few publishing houses that exist now. There's so few agents and editors that exist now because self-publishing is such a thing. And on one hand, that is fantastic because it helps make it accessible for me and people like me. But so because there's self-publishing and because there's so many avenues that you can get your books out, the challenge then is harder because you got to make your book stand out amongst all of these others. Some of the nice things about traditional publishing is that, you know, they have bigger networks. Their inbox, you know, their contact list far surpasses mine. But they also are in it for the money. And so they can tell you that you need to change your cover, whatever. So they then have the say in what your story is. So the nice thing about self-publishing is that I get to decide what's on my cover and I get to decide what's on the inside. What most authors are doing now are becoming hybrids. And that is they will self-publish books and then they will also try to traditionally publish books, but they'll kind of keep them separate. Like I have a book that I wrote last November for Nano, and I wrote it with Harlequin guidelines in mind because it's one that I want to put into one of their series. So then I would enjoy the self-publishing things for those projects that I have a cover in mind and I know what I want Lily to be and I know what I want, you know, JD to be and all of those things, and I'm firm on that. And then I also have some projects that I'm not as it has to be my way. So I think hybrid is probably the best of both worlds for publishing. And that wasn't even an option a few years ago. You know, if you weren't traditionally published, you weren't published at all. And there's still a lot of people who have that kind of stigma against self-published books, you know, like they look down on it like it's lesser than. I think self-publishing is not going anywhere. I think it's just going to get bigger. And then it's just all about, you know, getting a loyal fan base and keeping that fan base.
Would you say like the stigma behind self-publishing is one of the biggest challenges facing the 21st century?
Yeah, I think it absolutely is, because there's a lot of people who, if it doesn't come out of Random House or it doesn't come out of, Penguin Books or any of the bigger names, that somehow it's lesser than as a book. And it still goes through all the steps. Like it still has to be edited and it still has to be looked at and it still has to make sense. The characters have to be strong. The story has to be strong. So the storytelling part of it is the exact same. In my mind, self-publishing, when it's done well, should get more kudos than traditional publishing. Because again, we don't have a line of editors and we don't have a line of people making sure that everything is okay. It's on us. And how much time you put into it really indicates what kind of final product you're going to have. And people can just slap something down and call it a book, and that's great. That's what gives self-publishing a bad name. And for those authors who are going through all of the steps and are, trying to make the best story that they possibly can and taking these characters that have lived in their head and trying to put it on pages for other people to enjoy, we're the ones who are fighting the fight. So it really has changed everything, but it's hard to change the mindset of certain people because everybody can self-publish. No, but not everybody should, but everybody can. And because of that, it just makes people leery, as with everything new. We're doing an interview right now. We're not even in the same room. People would frown on that, so it's just trying to get people to embrace the new technology.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I think even more, I think Random House will always be okay. I think the huge publishers will always be okay, but the smaller ones, they can't compete with Amazon. They can't compete with the programs that are out there to help people write their own books. They just can't compete, because if I can do it myself and it costs me a fraction of what it costs them, I'm going to go this way and do it this way. It's like everything else. You get done what you make time for. And with self-publishing, and the publishing industry and the networking and the marketing and everything, the writing of it itself is a full-time job. And then all of the other things that go on with being an author, also a full-time job. Talking to people, but not becoming like I have some friends who overdo it. And like every post they do is, oh, buy my books, buy my books. But we get it. You have books to sell. Like, sit down. And if I'm irritated by it as another author, I imagine John Q. Public is irritated with it as well. So there's really just that balance of, yes, you want to promote yourself, and yes, you want to get your name out there, but you don't want to come off sounding like a, jerk as well.
So what are your favorite parts about being an author?
The most amazing thing about it is getting to share stories with people. And I really like talking to kids, much more than I ever thought I would have. But I really like talking to kids who all want to be authors. They all have stories, and just getting to talk to them about how to make a story and to follow their dreams, and just watching people's eyes light up. We recently, the people that I work on the kids book with, we were sitting in a Starbucks, and there was this little girl and her dad, and she kept like looking over at us because we had the Tommy book. We had it out on the desk because we were talking about the second one. And she kept like, looking over with her little donut face. And so we went over and we're like, hey, we wrote this book, and, would your daughter like one? And she's just like she's trying so hard to be, not obnoxious, but she's also very much interested in the book. And so we got to have kind of a beta read of our first Tommy book, and we were sitting over there watching her, trying not to be creepy, and just watching her react and her enjoy, and that was just one of the best author moments in my life, because she was so excited, and her dad was reading it to her, and yeah, so it was just an amazing thing, and those kinds of things they just kind of give me you're on the right path, you're doing something, like this is what you're supposed to do. So those get me through the days when I'm like, oh my God, this is so hard. But yeah, it was amazing to watch a little girl read our Tommy books.
So if students want to find and read your books, where would they go?
I am on Amazon and on my website, but yeah, michellesodaro.com. You can look at the author page for Michelle Sodaro. Sodaro is Sodaro. And yeah, they're on Amazon. You can contact me. I'll mail them to you. I'll sign them. Yeah, they're available.
Well, thank you for sitting down and talking with us. I really appreciate it.